Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. Today, I got a very special guest here for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
Hi, I'm Kerry Blaser Bouzaglo, Mary Magdalene Soul, and I am in Ventura, California.
Okay, and can you tell me as extensive as you want to go about your past leading up into your present?
Sure, yeah, I am 55 years old. So I was born in 1970. Both of my parents had traumatic childhoods, and so I also had a traumatic childhood. I have one older brother. We were raised in an affluent town in Southern California, about a half an hour south. My mom was an alcoholic. My dad's a workaholic. They got divorced when I was 6, and then I moved in with my mom. Even though we were an affluent town, we didn't have money. I got a job when I was 12. I started working at a hot dog on a stick when I was
How
14.
did you get a job when you were 12,
When I was
Carrie?
12, my mom worked at an insurance company. And so she got me a job just writing like addresses on flyer cards. And so I'd make like 7 or 10 cents a card. And
Wow.
my parents would argue before I was 10 years old about child support in front of me. And I internalized that as though I'm not worthy of being provided for a man. And
like
I
you like you basically is a number or something, like your life was a number.
Yeah, I mean, my dad and my mom, they didn't know how to have a healthy relationship, and that extended after the divorce. So, I internalized all of their self-hate that they openly displayed in front of me, not knowing, they're unaware of how generational trauma is passed down. So I internalized all that. But I needed that for the lessons that I would learn. I mean, I had to learn that if I want Mount Everest sized wisdom, which is what I was after, then I had to take on Mount Everest sized wounds as part of the process to get there. And I, learned a lot because, yeah, I went on. So I had that job, which took me to college. So I had a job at Hot Dog on a Stick, and I graduated with that job. I was making double minimum wage, and and it supported me in college. And I
What
ended up getting.
challenges, how long did you work at 12 and what challenges did you face? Did, like, when you came home with money, did your parents ever try to ask you for money? Some parents do that though.
I mean, that was between me and my mom, so I could imagine no, but my memory of my childhood is quite poor. So I don't
Understood.
remember like individual conversations. Like I don't remember like kindergarten. I have three memories of that whole year. And that's it because it was so traumatic. So, I mean, that's a great question. But I've always had challenges with money, even though I own my own condo and I got laid off 2 years ago. And so I'm living off my 401k and have renters. My story, my whole life, which wasn't reality, is that I'm not good with money. But I've owned this condo 15 years. I had a job for 18 years at the same company. I went from a $45,000 to like $100,000, and I have a master's degree. But it was the
Tell me
story.
about your career. Tell me
Yes.
about your career. Yeah.
So I worked in compliance in Elevance Health it was Anthem Blue Cross then. In the
Mm.
last 6 years of my career, I did risk and issue assessment, doing like internal audits. And using my psychic gifts, I uncovered a lot. Like I attracted profound wounds because I have profound wounds. We attract what we are, so we can see ourselves for self-improvement opportunities. So I attracted some really deep stuff, and I helped them see the error of their ways. I can't talk about it due to attorney-client privilege, but it was profound. A lot
So
of
you're a
claims.
psychic? You're a real psychic?
Yeah, I mean, I have psychic gifts. So what happened is that I had a very traumatic life. I got married to an Israeli man. We had 3 kids, and then I got divorced 20 years ago. And then 10 years ago, my mom passed away on my 45th
Sorry.
birthday. Thank you. Yeah, but so that was actually from a soul's perspective. That's a celebration of how close we were and how special that we have my birthday together and we have her death day together. And so that was the day my intuition told me it's time to accept your psychic gifts and it's time to heal from your childhood trauma. And that's when it started. And I'm an author now. My book, My Inner Heroine, Exploring Feminine Pain, that's where my book picks up. But I quickly go into about 7 years ago on my suicide attempt. And that's when I first,
Tell
that
me
was,
about that.
yeah, that was, my, these three pictures behind my mom and then my three kids and my youngest daughter, they have my back. Thank you. Um, she developed an eating disorder. And so she was in rehab, and I went to therapy that day. And she blamed me for her eating disorder. And that was encouraged by the therapist because she had learned that an eating disorder is a maternal wound. Now, I was arguing against the whole family. Like 7 years later, she's still really struggling. And right now, the wound she's facing is a wound she has with her dad. So, it's a family issue. But I internalized that as a bad mother, came home, and my brain told me my children would be better off with a dead mother than a live one. So I took
There
all
are
the
no bad mothers. There's just
right.
untrained, you
There's
know.
just, but there's the mental illness. I was agreeing with the negative thoughts. Like the only way I can hurt myself is if I agree with negativity, whether it's in me or it comes from outside of me. That's the only way I can hurt myself. So I internalized it. I hurt myself. Took all my trazodone, Klonopin, Soma, Ambien. I had just refilled everything. Went upstairs and I went to sleep instantly. Like I never went to sleep instantly. I mean, I let go for like the first time in my life.
And you
So,
woke up with a sternum rub, probably.
well, my older daughter, and the one right behind me, she found me the next morning because she was coming to get me because we were going to see my younger daughter, and she saved my life. And then she was in the room. She had just come to see me when I first opened my eyes from being on the ventilator 3 days later. And then, we were both so startled and I couldn't talk and she started crying and she left quickly, but she was there when it's like our souls knew, like that was our soul's gift to each other, like the thank you, the acknowledgement, the gratitude of how special she is, that she came into the room and I woke up in her presence. See what I mean? Like that's a soul gift.
Tell me about your challenges after you and your family developed a cohesive relationship through the struggles of your attempted suicide.
We haven't yet. We don't have a cohesive relationship. I don't have a place to go for Thanksgiving. So today's a special day for me. My ex-husband's Israeli. We met in Tibet in 1993, 2 weeks after he was in Beijing for Itzhak Rabin's historic Sino-Israeli meeting. And today is the 30th anniversary of Itzhak Rabin's assassination. And that
I'm sorry
happened,
to hear that.
yeah, that happened 2 months after we got married. So it was like that whole time was very intense in my understanding, like coming into living in Israel where I never planned, I'm not Jewish, and then going through all that with him and helping him go through that. And now like kind of 30 years later, swinging back around. And then it was today where all the text came out where I'm telling him, and my children, we need to come together as a family for Orly's healing. Like, you won't even invite me. You don't have a spot at Thanksgiving at the table, and our daughter doesn't eat. And she's, on the verge of going back to the hospital and rehab. And what's more important than that? Like, what are we doing? But the wound that they're working through is, I almost died after my older daughter was born. I was working too much and got bacterial pneumonia. So when I got pregnant with my last one, because I didn't care for myself, self-hate,
What
didn't
what
value
was
my
the
dignity.
what was the story behind you catching bacterial pneumonia?
Well, she was born on my brother's birthday. Again, like writing my brother, you have a sister. Like he doesn't talk to me right now. And then that was December. And so then early January, I went right back to work because money problems. We didn't plan well. And then I was overworked. And so I got sick. And so I was on a ventilator for 2 weeks, like seriously almost died. So, my ex-husband was concerned when I got pregnant with my last. You need to get an abortion. I'm like, choose between the marriage and your child. I said, I am not making that choice, but you can. But I did make that choice in that moment. So 3 years later, I was out.
You're anti-abortion or pro-abortion?
Now I'm anti-abortion, but
Me
I'm
too.
like, I mean, I was married with a husband, like let's find a way. We both have college degrees. He's an engineer. Let's move, we can sell our condo like it's our child. It was consensual sex. He knew how easily I got pregnant, and we had consensual, unprotected sex. Anyway, this is where this wound comes from 23 years ago that we're still working through, right? So it's like, I keep going, my soul has a plan. This is like yet another example of my soul has a plan. Like I put on there Mary Magdalene's soul. I was only this year was I able to accept all of the signs and synchronicities that's true for me. And I have that all on my website if you want to check it
Yeah.
out. Going from my birthday is June 25th. My middle name is May, which is Jesus' mother. It's just, there's so much.
Wow, you're into that too. That's
I mean,
crazy.
like, so, but this is the thing, like, and so what am I here to do? So this is the ladder of self-belief that I'm climbing this year. First, publish my book, to accept that I'm the same soul as Mary Magdalene. Okay, like Bouzaglo is a very Israeli, Sephardic Jewish last name. And then take everyone through the second coming in September that I didn't know that was coming, but it happened through an enlightenment experience. That's all on my website. And then in October, now November, write my Wisdom of Peace plan in honor of Itzhak Rabin. Now all that happened, I didn't remember. I wasn't even cognizant that we're approaching Itzhak Rabin's 30th anniversary. Like I'm a woman. I live in the moment. Like emotions are in the moment. Intuition is in the moment. So I'm not thinking, oh, well, this is happening. So that's, I wasn't thinking like that. Just like it just comes out of me intuitively. And so now I'm like, today in the text, I'm like, if I can't heal my ex-husband who's Jewish and help him see his Jewish pain and understand why Jews are attracting so much hate into their lives, because, we all attract what we are based on the laws of physics and our neurology. We have mirror neurons to show us this. Then how can I help anyone else? But how am I going to open his heart, but take us back to when we met and Itzhak Rabin, who was assassinated by another Jew? It's like it opens up this whole wound of Israelis fight, the internal fight inside of Israel between secular Jews and Orthodox Jews, like Bouzaglo is a Sephardic Jewish name. Ashkenazi Jews discriminated against Bouzaglos, like, Mary Magdalene, like her husband, Jesus Christ, which I know, people have different views on that, but I'm talking from a historical perspective. There's a lot of evidence saying that. Why did a Jewish man need to get crucified in front of his pregnant wife on Shabbat, which is when you value the feminine, in order to see and understand himself? Like, oh, Jesus died for our sins. Maybe he did. Like, that's a whole other story. But why did Jesus attract that into his life? Why did Mary Magdalene attract that into her life? How were Jews involved? And so I'm like a shaman opening up this wound in my heart for the collective to heal from. And it's like prime for it. There's so much like hatred towards Israel and Jews, and then the whole thing coming out with Charlie Kirk's assassination and was the Jews involved, and then people don't want to support them anymore. It's just like it's all this huge bright mirror to the Jews saying, why do you hate yourself so much? And
Do you have any proof about I understand your story, but do you have any proof about your claims
which
of
claims,
how
like,
you Mary Magdalene and
I
the
mean,
dates?
yeah, I mean, it's all in,
Because that's gematria. That's gematria, what you're doing.
what do you mean gematria? I don't know what you're talking, what do you
Well,
mean?
gematria is a math that you add up letters and
Oh,
numbers. But
I didn't
that's
do it that way.
how did
No,
you do it?
all the signs and synchronicities. So I'll start, in some of them. Okay, so in my book, I share all these men that I attracted into my life to show me my wounds that all led me back to my original hero from my childhood. His name is Jason Colvin, JC. He's currently the head of global security at GoDaddy, former FBI. Okay, so we have his initials. We have my birthday is June 25th. Okay, June 25th is also cardinal water sign. That's divine feminine. December 25th is cardinal earth sign. That's divine masculine. That's why the pagans did so many rituals on December 25th, because they were celebrating divine masculine energy. Then we move to my middle name, which is May, M-A-Y. May in Catholicism is the month they celebrate Mary, the mother of Jesus. Well, middle names are usually honorific of a family member. Now, I didn't know all of this. So what happened to me is I published the book, and around my birthday, June 25th, I started putting like JC, because I had heard in my head, you're on the Jesus Council. You're on a mission from God. You're an agent of God. Agents of God hide things in one lifetime to find things in another. Like the Gospel of Mary was first found in 1896. And then in 1947 in Egypt, they found a whole like 50 early Christian texts that speak to what was happening at that time. And this is where all this information comes out, that they were husband and wife, and she was, was pregnant, and, but I know that's, contested. So,
Jesus Christ's name is 10-3. The letters in the numbers are 10 and 3, JC. So I just hope that be of some relevance.
yeah, I don't know that whole realm of understanding, so I can't, I don't. But I know 13 is special to Mary Magdalene. That's what I've heard. I've seen those two numbers go together. Then, so that's like, we were born and named this way. Then we can kind of go, well, okay, there's a lot of historical evidence that Mary Magdalene went to southern France. Oh, this painting comes from southern France because I lived there for 2 years in Toulouse before I was 5 years old. That's also on my website. Okay, then I didn't go over everything, but then I go into in 2021, I started hearing that I'm on the Jesus Council. Well, I didn't know until this year that there was a religion called the Cathars, like a movement in southern France. 1 million of them were killed during the Inquisition from Spain, and they celebrated Mary Magdalene's teachings, way of love, that we don't need an external church or anything to access the divinity inside of my own soul. Like, I know I don't need the cross or the church to access divinity inside of my own soul. That spark of self-love, spark of enlightenment is within every soul. It's just, when does my soul plan to show me that part of myself? That's the kind of healing process. So what I found out is that the Cathars prophesied Mary Magdalene would return in 2021, and my voice came back in my first conversation with my first hero in my book on December 30th, 2020, totally unaware of this prophecy. Mary Magdalene, like in June of this year, I even Googled, did Jesus have a wife? And I have a master's degree in religious studies from the University of California at Santa Barbara, but I went east. I didn't go west. I went the other way. And so, but then when, so many more things happen. So that's all, you can read that on my website. And what's not on my website is what more that's happened this year. So on September 14th, which was 4 days after Charlie Kirk's assassination, I'm like, I have to speak. I have to speak. I have to speak. And it was my first day. I made a YouTube video on my YouTube channel that my soul is the same soul as Mary Magdalene. This is my understanding. There's no definitive proof, right? This is just what I'm seeing. And then when I accept myself, then more things, I go dive deeper into myself. So the next day I found out that September 14th in Christianity is the exaltation of the Holy Cross. That's the day Christians celebrate in the 4th century, where they went back to Jerusalem and supposedly found the cross where Jesus was crucified. I was like, okay, I'm coming out swinging, because I'm not going to celebrate that you killed my husband in front of me because of your sins. Sorry, no. It was just a hard no. And then the video's just coming out and coming out and coming out. And then on September 26th, I made a video called the 6 Divine Feminine Self-Love Strategies. And that's a Friday. And that's the Friday between Rosh Hashanah, the new year in Judaism, and the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. I didn't think of it that way because I don't know Jewish history. I don't know Jewish religion. I'm not Jewish. I came out, I'm like, okay, cool. The next day, I made 2 more videos. Second video question, how successful has the church been at teaching love thy enemy? And my contention is that the church has not been successful. I mean, the perception of an enemy is the falsehood. We're all told.
Do you feel like, the men that are in the churches and,
Yeah.
Catholic, it's just straight men. And I think it should be flooded and saturated and fair with more women. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. Let me just take you to this real quick. So then I had an enlightenment experience. And the next day I reached out, what is that day? Well, that day is called Shabbat Shuvah. And Shabbat is when they honor the feminine. They go home, they read the Woman of Valor poem. And Shabbat Shuvah is the biggest self-reflection day of the year. And it just naturally came out of me, self-love strategies, you know? So yeah, it came out of me, and that's, second coming, a covenant written on our hearts. And what came out of me, to answer your question, and all this research that I've been doing since June, is what happened in, after the church, like when was divine feminine suppressed? And this is what I found out. About 2,500 years ago was when they started suppressing Yahweh's wife, Asherah. So Yahweh always had a wife, and all of a sudden you stop hearing about her. And then,
And a wife is a goddess. A wife
right.
has to be the goddess to a god. It has to be a goddess to a god.
Right. There's that have to be the balance, right? And so then you look at, they called him Jesus Christ. Well, Christ's opposite is Sophia. Is Sophia's wisdom. Christ is consciousness and Sophia's wisdom, or like knowledge and wisdom, universal truths, universal wisdom, universal knowledge, right? And in September, one other amazing thing that happened, let me back up 1 second. Last fall is when I finally reached out to Jason after 40 years. At the peak of me facing my fear of being raped, and I'm arguing with his soul for my home. We're not in the same space because it wouldn't have been safe. In the peak, frustration point, all the lights went out in Ventura. It's like, oh, what happened, right? And I'm like, okay, that could just be, okay, let's see, So I'm learning about Mary Magdalene and Sophia and wisdom and in Greek mythology and all these things. And then it's late September, it's, probably the same week. Yeah, it was the same week. It was like the Monday before that Friday, September 26th. And I wake up at 1 a.m. and intuitively I was guided, I'm Sophia. My soul is Sophia. And within a minute, there was a major thunderstorm and tons of rain for about 15 minutes, like the only thunderstorm we've had this year. And then I went back to sleep. And I was like, I live on the Pacific Rim. I hope I'm okay, but it's things like that happen over and over and over. And so I just have to keep accepting myself. If I'm not Mary Magdalene's soul, okay, cool. But the more I accept and open my heart to myself, the more of this wisdom that comes out, and my wisdom of peace
I know
plan,
what you're saying.
and so that's how I know it's true. So, but yes, difficult, I'm a woman of valor. I say I'm innocence wrapped in valor. A lot of innocence saying that, but also a lot of valor to say it,
Well said, by the way. Do you believe that souls can transfer? And do you believe that since you feel like you're Mary Magdalene, that maybe your soul has, whether maybe you have come in another life across Mary Magdalene, or maybe you probably are. We never know in these lives.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
So I'll share something that really resonated with me, that really that could be what's going on. So we're souls having a human experience. We're divine beings. It's my understanding that as divine beings, we're multifaceted and we can be in multiple places at once. So, okay.
That's true. That's true.
And it's just, and we're all constantly communicating with each other through our heart spaces. Like, how many videos do you see of dogs getting super excited 1 minute before their owner comes home, every day? Well, that's their souls communicating. So this is what I think is happening, is that we're all I'm a TV set, and my soul is having multiple lifetimes at once, all the different channels all at once.
Exactly, like this channel.
And experience. And so I've asked myself, I'm like, well, why do I need so much pain to get so much wisdom? Why? Okay, well, the human body, right? Okay, so we have to balance a high vibrating soul, a soul that's capable of vibrating really high and then really low, with the capabilities of the nervous system in the human body. Well, something that I learned in the past couple of months is that a woman's nervous system is far more robust than a man's nervous system. Well, women, we're source energy. We have to channel souls into a body. Like we got to be able to handle it.
Exactly.
Woo!
Exactly.
You
Yes.
know. And so, what are we doing trying to be men when we can do that? Men's nervous systems are far more fragile. Hence, they kind of turn off their emotions, their soul, and plan and strategize so that we could be successful on Earth. And this is one thing that I think that something that I really had to accept that really helps me accept why men have so many challenges is that women, as you know, women are the emotional center and men leave the home to provide and protect. So they're kind of out on a limb and they're, we're source energy. So if source energy is out, then they're way out.
Yeah. Yeah. They're way out.
And so my solution, women need to learn how to occupy the center of a relationship, be that spiritual, emotional center, usually at home, which, I was taught, Karen, what career are you going to have? Where are you going to go to college? Go be independent. Like, forget my femininity as if that were valuable, right? Like,
Where do you see yourself going in the future? Because we're running out of time.
oh, we
Kerry.
are. Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean, right now I'm getting my message out. And, I'm waiting for the appropriate time for Jason and I to come together. I mean, if Jason wants to do a presidential run, let's go.
Have you ever thought about telling the news companies about you possibly being Mary Magdalene reincarnated, or reach out to television stations about this?
I haven't yet. I just got a marketing company last week. Last week, I also signed up for an interview with a BBC person who does investigative journalism. He's getting a master's degree in journalism. So I'm like, just the prefaces, I can't pronounce that, prefaces of all of that, And so when you reached out last week, I was like, oh, that's a good sign. I'm almost there,
Cool. And how can the people reach you? Thank you.
On my website, www.kerryblaser.com, you can find my 6 self-love strategies there. Also on Amazon, you can find my book, My Inner Heroine, Exploring Feminine Pain. And my book has nothing to do with Mary Magdalene's soul. That's my next book. I did all that before I accepted that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Kerry, for joining my show today. Stay on the line. Thank you guys for joining my show today. Y'all take care, be safe, and I will see you guys later. Bye.
Never waste my time. You are I want.